right, hello and welcome to MMT TV, and I'm here today with real estate rock star and 5-time best-selling author Frank McKinney. And he's got some major projects that have been on the go for a while now. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of how he runs his business and how he does real estate. So, Frank, why don't you give us a little background about who you are and how you got started in real estate?
I moved to Florida when I was 18 with a $50 bill and a 1.8 grade point average out of my 4th high school in 4 years. So I didn't have the benefit of pursuing a formal education. I was a maintenance worker on a golf course, earning $180 a week. I was very proud to have a job. Listen, I don't believe in the welfare mentality. The welfare system is one thing. The welfare mentality is a very dangerous other thing. I was proud to have that job. I didn't feel like I was entitled to anything. Worked hard. I was around affluence, Shaun, every day, watching people play tennis and golf, people that were living that lifestyle as the rich and famous, and I wanted a piece of it. So I got a job maintaining the tennis courts, moved from the golf course to tennis courts, picked up a tennis racket. I was a pretty good tennis player as a junior, as a young boy. I started teaching tennis. I went from $4 an hour to $40 an hour teaching tennis, was making over $100,000 a year at 21 years old, but yet there was a limit to how much I could make on the tennis court. I earned my PhD in entrepreneurship and really my master's in real estate teaching very wealthy people, and they taught me how they made their money. And it wasn't 9 to 5 sitting in their little cubicle. It was out there investing in some way, shape, or form in real estate. So in 1986, 87, I bought my first fixer-upper, a $50,000 crack house in a really bad part of town. That's crack as in cracked cocaine, not cracked foundation. Fixed it up, made a $7,000 profit. And now 25 years later, we sell some of the most, or create, I should say, we create first and then sell on speculation, meaning without a buyer in mind, some of the most beautiful homes on, I keep looking out this way because I work from a treehouse, Shaun, and the ocean is right there. Maybe at the end I'll pick up and turn around my computer so your viewers can see. But I build houses right there on the ocean and have built beautiful mansions on speculation for the past 20 years.
So now you're doing real estate on spec, but when you first got started with that first house, was it a speculation buy or was there a strategy behind it?
I believe really in carving your niche a little deeper and a little wider than most. So therefore, at the very early stages of my career, I was in what I call a cash accumulation stage. I didn't know if I wanted to be a real estate rehabber or flipper or wholesaler or retailer or general contractor, commercial real estate storage. I didn't know what I wanted to do, Shaun. All I knew is it would take some money to do it. So I bought a few houses, fixed them up, sold them, made $7,000 to $10,000 per house. I started accumulating the cash that allowed me to decide which element of real estate I wanted to get into. And now 25 years later, I've never left the cash accumulation stage. I'm still there buying an undervalued commodity, real estate, adding value to it like nobody else, marketing it like nobody else, and selling it in record time. And really, we've done almost 40 projects since 1992, valued at about $15.5 million per home. And so, there's a lot of ways to make money in real estate, but I believe that the American dream was never meant to be rented. The American dream was meant to be and is desired to be owned. And from the $50,000 fixer-upper to the $50 million mansion, I'm there to provide it to those who can afford it.
That's an incredible story. Which one of these projects was your favorite one to do?
Boy, that's a good one. I haven't thought about that in a while. I have to tell you that the very first project I did in 1986 was one of the scariest because I had taken all the money that I earned baking out there in the hot sun teaching tennis. And this was before the no money down and all these little late night infomercial BS, things out there, the gurus. And I took my own money and I bought that foreclosure at the courthouse steps. All the money I had saved over a year and a half teaching tennis, $30,000, I put that on that first house. That was probably my scariest and I guess maybe one of my most favorite. I think the last project that we sold was Aquiliana, which is the world's largest and most expensive triple certified green home. Green as in environmentally responsible. That was the most beautiful house that we built at $23.5 million on over an acre and a half of property that spanned from the ocean to the intercoastal.
I've heard you talk about this project and you had a whole vision for this. Can you talk about how you developed that vision?
Well, in business today, and it doesn't matter if you're in the real estate business or in the widget business, it's innovation and creativity that is rewarded. It's just an MP3 player, No, it's not. It's an iPod. I mean, it's just a cell phone. No, it's not. It's an iPhone. It's just a tablet. No, it's not. It's an iPad. Innovation and creativity is what's rewarded today. So when I design my houses, I design them like Van Gogh, Renoir, or Monet would paint a painting. I deliver art in 3 dimensions that somebody can actually, who can afford a $30 million painting, can live in one of my houses, live in my piece of art, and enjoy it, not only the financial return from its appreciation, but the emotional return from enjoying a house on the ocean. So if you strip it all down, Shaun, I'm really in the time business, because what I create, artistry, on that sun-drenched canvas known as the Atlantic Ocean, it takes me about 2 years from the time I start to design it, the time I am able to put a for sale sign in the ground. And when you, let's say you are an ultra-wealthy buyer, when you come in the door, that house has linens on the beds, towels in the closets, furniture throughout every single room in the house, a gold-plated toothbrush in the bathroom. So what's that time worth to you, Shaun? You could certainly go out and create that house, but it's going to take you 2 years, plus the aggravation. And so what I do is I sell lifetime achievement awards. I sell instant gratification. And if you want it, and you have enough zeros in your bank account to be able to afford it, you can walk in my house on a Tuesday, and oftentimes you'll be sleeping there on a Friday.
Yeah, that's incredible. Now, I know a lot of people who do real estate, they'll buy them, they'll flip them, but you do a very different type here. You're talking about ultra luxury, incredible pieces of art. So why did you start doing it this way?
Shaun, the most important thing that, and I'm just going to give a little shameless or shameful, however you want to, the most important thing that a reader would learn from my new real estate book, verse this, is it doesn't matter the price point that you're dealing in. A $50,000 fixer-upper, a flipper, whatever you want to call it, all the way to a $50 million mansion. I advocate that you as an investor take an artist approach to the commodity that is real estate. It will help brand you. It will help establish a personal brand for you. You will be able to make a market where it hadn't existed before. You're going to have people lining up to buy. Listen, how does that relate, Frank, to a $50,000 fixer-upper? I'll tell you, $15 a yard carpet instead of 10, 3 coats of paint instead of 2, a new roof instead of just patching it, grass sod instead of grass seed. I made those first houses the nicest little houses on the block. And I decided subconsciously, I didn't know it back then, Shaun, but now I look back, to be an artist when it came to that profession. I don't want to be a starving artist. Mind you, I'm not there to create this art and lose money. I want to make money at it. But I found that if I put a little bit more into the property, I made it extremely attractive to the first-time home buyer. And then when we jumped up the price point ladder, over $2 million all the way up to the $50 million house we did, it was selling 3-dimensional art. And I advocate that at any price point, that's the approach that real estate investors should take.
Yeah, and would you say that that's something that you need to do in every type of business, is when you're going into it, think of it as an art?
I do. I think of it as, like if Van Gogh or Renoir or Monet went to the art supply store and they bought, like a little palette, and they bought their paint and their brush, they're not looking for the cheapest paint. They're not looking for the cheapest canvas. They're not looking to put just, a skim coat of paint onto that beautiful painting that sells now for 30. They're putting that aside. They have a budget when they walk into that art supply store. But they know up here that it's the finished product, where they're not going to cut corners, and they're going to appeal to a wider purchasing base. That, you're absolutely right, Shaun. That is an approach. Really, what we're talking about is pride and passion for your professional highest calling. Each one of us has it. I found mine, fortunately, very early in life. I have not deviated from that professional highest calling in 25 years. I've got really good at the craft of real estate. Mind you, I use another artistic word, the craft of real estate. But I tell you what, if I lost everything and I had to start all over again, I would take the same approach to that $50,000 fixer-upper as I have to the nice houses on the ocean that we build now.
Let's go back to that very first deal that you did, the crack house. What were some of the key lessons that you learned about real estate doing that deal?
Let's just talk about a general life lesson that I learned besides specific. I waited too long to pull the trigger on that first deal. I was terrified. Hands were shaking at the foreclosure auction with my cash in hand when I was looking to buy that house. So, people ask, what's one of your biggest regrets? And I think early on in my career, I would say that it was contemplating and pondering and thinking too much and not pulling the trigger. For people that are younger today, they have it even harder when it comes to making a decision in life. They over spreadsheet, they over Google, they over research. And the problem when you do that, and this is something that I ask that you try to catch yourself in if it happens to you, and everybody listening, is when you research a new investment, a new opportunity, and there's plenty of opportunities to research that, right? We can, with the click of a mouse, we can be researching all day long. What you're really doing, Shaun, is your subconscious is looking for something to tell you, no, you shouldn't do it. You keep studying and searching and listen, and finally, let's use real estate as an example, you'll find an article that says the real estate market has another 20% to correct. One person says that. That validates what your friend said, who's the naysayer, who thinks who wants you to fail because he's jealous of your ambition. And you then say, aha, here's the article that says I shouldn't get into it, and you move on to some other endeavor. You wake up one day, you're 50 years old, and you haven't done anything because you've overstudied, you've over-Googled, you've over-researched. That's one thing that, even though Google wasn't around when I got started, I was guilty of. And I quickly moved beyond that, where I tend to do in one day what it takes the average person's 2 days just to think about. That was the best lesson I learned on that first house.
Yeah, so you started making rapid decisions and moving forward with that project. When you started to move to your next deals, what was the approach that you started to take to real estate?
I never got ahead of myself. In other words, when I was doing, there's a Malcolm Gladwell. I'm sure you know Malcolm Gladwell, a great author, who wrote the book. He wrote many books, but one of my favorites is Blink. And in Blink, Gladwell says to be an expert at anything, you need to put in 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours is 5 years full-time, 40 hours a week. And as I look back on my career, when I read that book a couple summers ago, I was astonished to realize from 1986 to 1991, I didn't do a house worth more than $100,000. I did hundreds of them. I got really good at it. And I didn't sit back and say, I'm tired of doing 5 houses, I want to do 100. I was focused on the 5 that I was doing. And I never thought that this wasn't meant, I need to get over to that ocean front and start building on the ocean. There was never an inkling that I was going to start building over on the ocean front. Until one day, my wife and I were early for church. We had some time to kill. We drove by a house that had the same telltale signs as a foreclosure. 2 weeks of uncollected newspapers, 2 months of uncut grass, screens falling off, windows broken, but it happened to be on the ocean. And so we acted very quickly. We sold all of our smaller properties. We sold our house, actually. We sold our cars, and we bought that house and really haven't looked back since.
When you're doing real estate speculation, do you find that to be a risky type of investment?
Unequivocally. So get this. When you're a real estate speculator, I haven't known when I'm going to get paid for 25 years. I don't know when my payday is going to come for 25 years. And as we've spread out from doing 20 or 30 houses a year early on to 1 or 2 masterpieces a year, the time between my picking up my paycheck can be in a slow market like a few years ago was 2 years. So I mean, for the average person to comprehend that it's my money, me, the bank, and the IRS. I'm not a partner person. So the bank's my partner, and you always got the IRS as your partner. We buy the land, we design the house, we build the house, we furnish the house, we market the house, and we sell it. And that, as I said, that could be a 2-year period of time. So like the Field of Dreams, the movie The Field of Dreams, build it and you hope they will come. Not build it and they will come. You hope they will come. So I'm a firm believer, and regardless of the line of work that you're in, that you must exercise your risk tolerance, your risk threshold, if you will. You must exercise it like a muscle. Eventually, Shaun, it becomes stronger and is able to withstand greater pressure. So for those who just are new to my scene and they say, my goodness, how do you sleep at night? How do you have a full head of hair with this huge risk that you're taking out there? Shaun, it started with a $50,000 fixer-upper. And I built that risk tolerance, that risk threshold, like a muscle for all these years. Now I know no other way. But you have to condition yourself for risk. And the last point I want to make on risk, when you think about taking a risk in life, regardless of what it is, the next 4-letter word that appears almost instantaneously is fear. So risk equals fear, but when you contemplate risk that results in fear, the contemplation of that risk is a derivative of a big change or a big challenge in your life. So next time you think about risking, I guarantee you it has something to do with a big change or challenge in your life. That fear, that sensation that you get, that's fear associated with risk, should be a good sign that you're getting ready to undertake a big change or big challenge in life. Without doing that, we're dead.
Yeah. So you said that you've exercised this risk tolerance muscle. So what are some of the strategies that you use to manage the risk for yourself going into projects that are that big?
Okay, so we talked about being an artist and all this, this foofy stuff, right? But I'm a businessman first and an artist a distant second. I have a formula that I have adhered to without fail for 25 years. So I share it. It's in my book. I'll share it here. It's very simple. My acquisition basis, basically what it costs me to buy the opportunity, plus the improvement costs, be it a coat of paint, that's all it needs, a new mailbox, all the way to building a house for $700 a square foot from the ground up at 10,000 square feet. That's $7 million in improvement costs. Acquisition plus improvement costs should never equal more than 65% of aftermarket retail. So when you're out there looking to do a real estate deal, how much does it cost me to buy it? How much does it cost me to improve it? Should never equal more than 65% of retail. That's just a religion that I've adhered to. And if it doesn't fall within that formula, Shaun, I don't do it. It's easy for me to say no. When it falls into that criteria or inside that formula, in real estate, Shaun, you make your money the day you buy, not the day that you sell. And if I've stayed within that formula, guess what? I need to celebrate that day. And we do. We celebrate the buy day more than the sell day.
Because you made all your money there. So how do you determine the aftermarket value?
That's pretty simple. I mean, really, with real estate in any marketplace, my market here or around the country, you can do what's called a comparative market analysis, which is basically a fancy 3 words for an appraisal. And you have a broker that can put that together for you, and he or she can tell you within a relatively short period of time, what would your house be worth after it's renovated or if it's built from the ground up. And I know that, and usually typically for us, ours are so nice that we're able to get 5 to 10% above market value because they're just so artistic and beautiful. And if that's my top number, if that's my end user number, my sales price number, then I back into how much can I afford to pay for it, how much can I afford to improve it with, and then what I've got left there is the profit.
I like that. I have a few friends that go into the ultra luxury markets. And they say it's great because even if you have to discount, it's a slow market or something's going wrong, you can still charge above average rents, or if the market's slow, you can lower the rents to market rents and dominate in that market that way.
Well, you're referring to rents. I mean, I don't rent my properties, but I sell them. Same analogy holds true to sales. Yes, a few years ago in South Florida, we were hammered down here. I mean, our values were crushed. And luckily, I had enough room in there that when I needed to move a piece of property, I wasn't going to lose money on it. I might not have made a whole lot, but I was able to move it. Whereas a few years ago, before the crash down here in South Florida, we were getting 98 cents on the dollar on our asking price. So in the scheme of life, it all kind of averages out where we were making 20% or so on every deal that we did. That's a safe margin. That's actually a very good return.
So you said that you are not a partner guy and you go with the bank's your partner. Why don't you partner with investors?
I'm just not a good partner person. You're either cut out to be a partner person or you're not. And I guess, if you turn the clock back to when I was doing my first deals, I was by myself. I was answering to nobody. I was using my tennis money, right, to do these first few houses. And not to say, Shaun, that I haven't had partners in the past when I just couldn't put it together with the bank. But at the high-end level, the last thing I want is a guy or a woman that has a ton of money and a ton of time and showing up basically as a hobby, right? They have nothing else to do but show up on my site and want to help me pick paint colors. So I mean, in the past, when I have done partnerships, I've done 2 of them, the partner wasn't even allowed to come on the property. I mean, just invest your money. I'll make you one partner. I made $5 million on one transaction. He never even saw the property. That was a deal. Don't come look at it. I'm going to, I need your money. I'm going to make you a fortune. I ended up sending him a check for his money back plus $5 million profit. I just, I don't know. I mean, I I guess I use the analogy of the Van Gogh, Renoir, Monet. Nobody's holding their hand when they're painting that beautiful painting, and I like to kind of do my own thing. And when you're in the speculative marketplace, I'm building to a profile. I'm not building for an individual. There is no individual. I'm profiling the ultra wealthy, their net worth, their needs, their desires, their wants, and that's what I'm building to. And that's very hard for a partner to understand.
Yeah. So when you're building these homes and you're looking at this profile, are you looking and surveying data? Do you go to a network of people that you have?
The profile of my buyer has evolved. That's a really interesting. Matter of fact, a very fascinating book would be the psychology of the ultra wealthy. It's fascinating, Shaun. I've learned more over the 20 years in the high-end business now. I guess I've developed that profile over the years when combined, like you're from Canada, right?
Correct.
So the Canadian buyers, when the Canadian dollar became very, very strong in parity with the US dollar, how we would see an influx of Canadians. Now we're seeing a lot of South Americans come in because they want a safe haven for their money. When the euro was stronger against our dollar, you would see some foreigners there. Of the 10 buyers, if there were 10 buyers of my ultra high-end homes, 7 or so are still from the United States. But to study their buying habits, they're like you and I. If you're going to go to the mall and buy a pair of shoes, I mean, we might spend 2 hours doing that and thinking and pondering and looking and trying. They walk in the door of one of my houses, as I said, on a Tuesday, and by Friday they're sleeping there. Like, they don't need to think about it. Either they love what I've done or they hate it. And that's when you're speculating in real estate, and especially the higher end real estate, you can't build a vanilla cookie cutter home that somebody walks out of the house and turns to their wife, kind of scratches their head and says, hey, honey, that was kind of nice. I mean, kind of nice isn't going to get you a $10, $15 million sale. They either got to love it or hate it.
Yeah, is that the only thing that separates the ultra wealthy from other people, or what's the psychology of the ultra wealthy?
We would have to spend an hour on that. The few things I can tell you is the way with which they make their decisions, the rapidity, the quickness with which they make their decisions. They don't deny themselves the Lifetime Achievement Award. So the Oscars and the Emmys, give them away. I sell them. And when they find something that represents that Lifetime Achievement Award, they've worked so hard. Most of them, I think of the 30 or so high-end transactions we've had, Shaun, I might have sold 2 to people who have inherited their money. I mean, 95% of them have worked hard for their money. When they find something, and this is something we can all learn, right? We preach about, we read about smelling the roses, but how often do we really do it? They do it. Maybe because they can afford to do it, but they don't deny themselves that Lifetime Achievement Award. And I think once they've found what they like, make that very fast decision, and know that tomorrow could be the day they walk across the street and get hit by a Greyhound bus, that's a very fascinating sequence to see. And then if they don't like something, like, they're not going to go back and think about it. I got to have pretty thick skin. I've had people walk in houses of mine where, like, the wife will literally, the door swings open, she sees something that turns her off and grabs her husband and says, we're out of this dump, after I've spent 2 years of my life building it. So there is no black, there is no gray. It's either black and white with the ultra wealthy.
Yeah, I like that. Very quick decision-making ability there. But so how do you market to these people? How do you reach out to them?
Well, I would suggest that anybody in the real estate business, or even not in the real estate business, goes to my website, which is just my name, frank-mckinney.com. So Frank with a dash, McKinney, McKinney.com. Click on it states sold. You can see some magnificent homes that we sold, and you can see what we do from an internet marketing strategy. Good case in point. I sold a $30 million house to a guy who took a video tour, not a virtual tour, but a video tour, like a trailer for a movie. Actually, our video tours are stunning. He took a video tour from his office in New York, liked what he saw, got on his Gulfstream 5 jet, came down here, said, oh my God, it's even better in person than it is on the video. I'm buying it. What we do internally to market, it's the longest chapter in my Burst This book. There's 165 different marketing initiatives that I touch on a weekly basis when we have a project that's finished. I also list my properties with a Sotheby's, no, reverse that, with a Christie's affiliate. So Christie's Auction House, the ones who sell the $30 million Van Gogh, I work very closely with a broker that I've been with for 15 years there. The important thing, though, when you're involved in real estate on the sales side, I'm there at every showing and every sale, because the end user wants to hear from the artist. They want to hear what inspired you to create this beautiful house on the ocean, and that's a process that I thoroughly enjoy, because not every showing results in a sale, mind you. Our ratio is about 8 to 1. So I have 8 showings, qualified showings. If no indictment on you, but if you, well, I probably do it for you, but most of your listeners or viewers want to come see my house, unless you can show me a financial statement that you can afford it, this isn't a museum for me to give tours in. So those 8 people that came to look at it, I know they're either household names or they're qualified, and for every 8 we have that one sale, but 7 times I'm failing. But you better believe I'm learning what I did wrong that I can do better on the next one from those 7 showings.
Yeah. And did these people ever come back? I imagine some of them would.
Yeah, you know, some of them would say, look, this style isn't for me, but your quality and the way that you approach the furnishings and just the appeal to me is fascinating. When you're done with something that maybe is a little bit more Mediterranean, Frank, that's my style. You just build a Balinesian style house or a Polynesian style house, call me. And most of the people we've sold to, Shaun, have become lifelong friends of my wife and me.
That's very cool. Do you have like an artist's signature when you're doing this house and people walk in? Do they know it's a Frank McKinney house right away?
The marketing that we do leading up to the unveiling of the house. So unveiling, one of the houses, if you go to our website, you click on the greatest hits video, which is kind of the compilation video of all the media we've done. Oprah a couple times, 2020. One of them covered this unveiling that we did, that we actually covered the house in a veil, just like a sculpture would be covered until you pulled the veil off. It was a $20,000 piece of fabric we put over this house. So, you know, that when the marketing, the unveiling takes place, and people, there's so much anticipation leading up to that unveiling that they know that it's a Frank McKinney house that's ready to be unveiled, and hopefully, you know, there'll be people lining up to buy it.
Yeah, I like that. Now we're getting close to the end. Now, could you show us that view from your window?
Yeah, I'm going to unplug the computer. I don't think it'll go off. Nope, I have enough charge. So here we go. I'm going to walk it over there because it's going to get washed out. I'm going to flip it around. You tell me what you see, because I won't be able to see it.
I see an incredible view.
Can you see the ocean?
I can see the ocean.
All right. There's a jogging lady right there. I no longer even have a main office. I used to until about 2 years ago. This is it. I have a shower, I have a sink, I have a toilet, I have a king-size bed above my head, I've got a flat-screen TV, I got my computer, I got a refrigerator. Until I build a place, and this is what I want to have everybody watching focus on, find a place that draws out your creativity and your ingenuity. I hadn't written a book until I built this treehouse. I've written 5 best-selling books in 4 different genres: business, real estate, spirituality, and a young reader fantasy novel. And this is where I designed those houses from. So there's, and that view that I just showed you, that's what I look at every single day when I sit down here to design a new house or make a deal or start to write a new book. Find a place that draws out your creativity and your ingenuity.
Perfect. That's something that I'm doing in here too. You know, I used to have a background. It's actually that wall over there. I'm turning this whole place into a studio.
Very good. It'll work.
Thanks so much, Frank, for being on the call. Is there anything that you wanted to, give us as parting words from you?
Exercise your risk tolerance, your risk threshold like a muscle. Eventually it will become stronger and able to withstand greater pressure. And the last thing is, each one of us has been blessed with the ability to succeed at a certain level. And the sooner you realize that those blessings were not meant for your sole benefit, but were meant to assist others who will likely not succeed at your level. My spiritual book, The Tap, which I guess you can see that down there, which is an expansion on a wonderful life mantra. I don't care if you have a religious preference, but it happens to be a biblical passage. To whom much is entrusted, much is expected. So all these beautiful houses I built on the ocean, will be rubble someday. But what I'm most proud of, for the last 10 years, we're on our 19th and 20th self-sufficient village in the poorest country in the world, Shaun, that being Haiti. We've provided 8,800 people, desperately poor and homeless people, with concrete shelter that would have were sleeping in mud or underneath the steps of a church. You have, Shaun, and you have, viewer, a professional highest calling. You know what else you have? A spiritual highest calling. The minute you can dovetail those two together, I provide housing to the world's most wealthy, so I can provide housing to the world's most poor. The minute you can dovetail those two together, you've just passed happiness and landed straight on joy.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. But thank you so much, Frank, for being on the show today, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the future.
Have me back to talk a little bit more about the tap. I think I'd love to expand on that. It's a whole nother half hour. But thank you, everybody. Get to it. Shaun, you're an awesome guy. You're going to do great.
Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video, and be sure to like, share, and comment below. Subscribe to this channel for more interviews, and if you want to go further and be live on the interviews, you can go to mmt.tv/live to find out how. Like on Facebook, follow on Twitter to ask your questions, and be sure to get on the mailing list. Go to mmt.tv to get access to all the things that are not contained in these interviews. All the links are mentioned below, and until next time, break the rules, change the game, and be a rock star.